alive or dead, who has any love or respect for individual rights. So when Americans are confused as to why their own government would ever try to harm them, they either don't understand the nature of evil, or they don't grasp how priceless the Bill of Rights actually are. They are the bane of the globalist tyrants who seek to control all of humanity. We could trace this conspiracy of tyrants all the way back to the 18th century, but we'll begin with the year that gave birth to the Federal Reserve Bank and Big Pharma. In 1910, the Carnegie Foundation published the Flexner Report, which directly led to the shutting down of natural traditional medicine and gave way for the Rockefellers to patent and monopolize the medicine industry. That same year, Rothschild banking dynasty's Paul Warburg, along with high-ranking members of U.S. banking and government, met in secret to hatch a plan that would financially rob every single American citizen for generations to come. Fractional reserve banking was considered a scam for centuries. This changed in 1913 with the Federal Reserve banking system. Fractional reserve banking became the norm, regulated by the Fed. The Federal Reserve was also given the task of managing the U.S. debt, otherwise known as inflation, the hidden tax where the Fed gets to bail out members of their criminal cabal while everyone else suffers. Meanwhile, their families created their own interest-free banks, utilizing what's known as a whole life insurance policy and family trusts, keeping their own wealth safely out of the Federal Reserve System, a banking system that gave this cabal unlimited funds to wage war against all of humanity. In 1921, after years of meeting in secret, the Round Table Movement, a group that sought to reunify America with the Crown, and the Harvard Business School, merged factions to become the Council on Foreign Relations, a think tank allowing bankers and industrialists the opportunity to engineer government policy and discreetly undermine American democracy. In 1942, the OSS was formed by the cabal as an intelligence agency to fight the war.
How to get ripped within 30 days without gym and dieting. This genius US Navy SEALs device to get incredible abs with
OSS member Alan Dulles went on to help create the CIA in 1947, who immediately began seizing control of the worldwide illicit drug market, starting with trade in Sicily. The CIA's reputation speaks for itself. They are the world's biggest cartel, overthrower of nations, and purveyors of propaganda and MK-Ultra. The globalist cabal has these intelligence groups in all of their nations, with no oversight, using them as a secret army to carry out their agenda. In 1944, the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund were created under the guise of fostering global growth, followed by the United Nations in 1945. What they actually did was work together to violently seize control of entire nations. The World Bank trained people known as economic men to make a simple offer to world leaders on their behalf: either accept a massive loan designed to bankrupt their nation or be killed. And many were. The game is simple: conquer by debt. The Federal Reserve banking system does it to every individual, and the World Bank and IMF do it to every nation. Once indebted to these crooked institutions, they lose control over their own destiny. The only difference between the mafia and this globalist cabal is scale. Starting in 1951, Henry Kissinger founded and directed the Harvard International Seminar. Funded by Kissinger through grants from private foundations known to be fronts for the CIA, the Harvard International Seminar was yet another group of globalist leaders coming together to discuss the future of a one-world government. The first documented meeting of the infamous Bilderberg Group was in 1954, but it would take the public 50 years to become aware of them. In 1955, the Bilderberg Group privately discussed plans for the European Union and the Euro, 38 years before their creation, slowly making their way into a one-world government controlled by their own interests.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
After they assassinated JFK, the agenda went into overdrive. Destructive leftist programs under the guise of welfare were deployed, making more and more people dependent upon big government. In 1971, the UN votes to admit Communist China and expel Taiwan, lighting a spark that leads to World War. UN Ambassador George H.W. Bush accompanies Henry Kissinger to open up business with the CCP. That same year, a young Klaus Schwab, son of a Nazi industrialist and protege of Henry Kissinger, formed the World Economic Forum, replacing and expanding Kissinger's International Seminar. The World Economic Forum is made up of 1,000 corporate entities, represented by a consensus of 100, the same exact entities that make up the Bilderberg Group, because they are one and the same. As the World Economic Forum, this group of power-hungry parasites goes public and gradually begins to normalize their agenda for world domination. In 1974, Kissinger drafts National Security Study Memorandum 200, wherein he calls for worldwide depopulation. And a year later, it becomes official U.S. policy. During the 1980s, the CIA sold to Los Angeles street gangs to fund an illegal war, while Big Pharma tens of thousands of Americans with AZT and lies. In the 90s, they began spinning the outrageous lie that the loyal, patriotic American is a domestic while drafting more globalist policies such as NAFTA. In 1992, Klaus Schwab established the Global Leaders for Tomorrow School, later re-established as the Young Global Leaders. Attendees include all the major players. In 1992, Bill Gates was the head of a computer software company. He attended Klaus Schwab's Globalist Leader Schools in 1993, and in 1994, he begins his life in scientific research and global health with the formation of the William H. Gates Foundation, which later became the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Gates's so-called philanthropic efforts revolved around human depopulation, genetically modified foods, and experimental. In 1997, Jeff Bezos's Amazon.com was the world's biggest bookstore. In 1998, Bezos attended Schwab's Global Leaders School. By the end of that same year, Amazon begins selling a wide variety of other products and expands sales outside of the US. After they felled the World Trade Center, their propaganda story of Saudi hijackers with box cutters was used as the catalyst for destabilizing nations, creating armies of angry migrants, and stealing away more American liberties in the name of security.
You will and you are failing now. Your New World Order will fall. Humanity will defeat you. The answer to 1984 is 1776.
Thanks to a small group of alternative journalists, people all over the world began waking up to the reality that an international cabal of powerful interests are conspiring to destroy national sovereignty, the Bill of Rights, and anything else standing in the way of a one-world government. We are now witnessing their plans coming into fruition, the Great Reset, and Build Back Better. But before they can build back better, they must destroy. They must destroy civilization to the point that we collectively accept them and their tyrannical plans for global corporate governance as our only solution. They haven't won yet, but they are well on their way to victory unless humanity stands against them.
Recently, the central bank digital currencies have been the talking point at the global confabs because
age 49 to 63 and not able to work? This message is for you. New rules in 2022.
they lead to the creation of a global currency system.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the session on resetting digital currencies. The theme of this year's forum, as you know, is a crucial year to rebuild trust.
A digital payment system can help reduce these logistical costs, can help remove the dangers of holding cash.
As the architects of multiple global crises pour on the tyranny, the IMF is enjoying an elevated position as the problem solver most nations turn to for help. Racketeering on a global scale.
With all the current issues on our agenda, we tend to forget that we are in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution, which accelerates global change in much more comprehensive and faster ways than the previous three revolutions. The objective is to quickly recognize the potential of new technologies. History is truly at a turning point. We do not yet know the full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen. However, we do know that global energy systems, food systems, and supply chains will be deeply affected.
And as Bloomberg gleefully reported, key Democratic congressional allies are urging President Joe Biden's administration to support a new injection of resources for countries at the IMF to help them deal with the fallout from Russia's invasion of Ukraine, to the tune of at least $650 billion in additional IMF reserve assets. The demand is being led by Representative Pramila Jayapal and Senator Elizabeth Warren. Zero Hedge recently put the puzzle pieces together concerning the Democrats' proposed $650 billion flooding of the IMF with special drawing right funds. What are special drawing right funds?
The Special Drawing Right, or SDR, was created by the IMF in 1969 to supplement the official reserves of its member countries. The SDR is an interest-bearing international reserve asset that can only be held by the IMF, its member countries, and designated official entities known as prescribed holders. In addition to this role, the SDR serves as the unit of account of the IMF and several other international organizations.
Zero Hedge writes, each new crisis brings global banks closer to their goal, the introduction of national digital currencies, and the SDR basket become the de facto reserve trading tool for the world. Why do Democrats specifically want aid denominated in SDRs? Because funding allocations in the U.S. have already hit their maximum, and new funding bills are being defeated in the Senate. At the IMF, there are no checks and balances. They can ask for almost any amount of money in the form of SDRs without oversight. There are always strings attached when it comes to the IMF, and in exchange for SDRs, the globalists will certainly want more centralized control. We are being looted in real time of our property, currency, sovereignty, and our very lives.